Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Everything, and I'm coming at you with another Star Citizen late night live stream. But first, I do want to make an announcement. I am going to be watching the Around the Verse episode. Star Citizen late night live stream. I got my mic going on. But first, got that turned off. Okay, good. So I will be watching the Around the Verse episode here. I'll be eating a slice of pie. I'll be drinking coffee. Enjoy the show. I noticed that the video is going to be about 50 minutes long. 40 minutes long, and we'll get started. I'll talk about it as we go. Yeah, I think it's right there.
And welcome to another episode of Around the Verse, our weekly look at Star Citizen's ongoing development. I'm Sandy Gardner.
And I'm Jeremiah Lee.
Nice to have you here today. On today's episode, we investigate the new stamina system gameplay and learn how various actions will be affecting your avatar in-game.
But before we dive in, let's focus on the most important action happening around the offices, Alpha 3.0.
That means it's time to check in with Eric Chiron Davis and the rest of the team for this week's Burn Down. Burn down.
Welcome back to Burn Down, our weekly show dedicated to reviewing progress on issues blocking the release of Star Citizen Alpha 3.0. Last week, we ended at 94 total must-fix issues, which was prioritized as 9 blockers, 62 criticals, 21 highs, 2 moderates, and no trivials. So let's check in with the team to see how we're progressing.
So main things about 3 at the moment, as we're drilling down more on the PTU/Eva must-fix issues. Tom and I and Paul as well. Got some more triaging that we're still doing. We're aiming to get through at least the criticals before we're definitely signed off on going, yeah, these are the must-fix issues. But in the meantime, I'm aiming to send out an email to the team about the must-fix issues we currently have. Those are the ones we want to start working on in order to push forward for Eva. So focus on those.
The thing about game development is that with bug fixing and particularly drilling down on the must-fix issues that we now have, is that like most things in life, you can have good days and you can have bad days with stuff. Developers can have a really good day where they just pull at a thread of a bug, you know, something they've been working on for a little while, and all of a sudden they kind of have that eureka moment, they pull on it, and then everything else just unravels and it allows them to fix the next few bugs stacked up behind that. On the flip side of things, you can potentially have a really bad day where a feature's got a little bit further, developers have put some more fixes in, given its QA over to testing, and QA goes in, starts testing it, and they can go, well, that doesn't work, there's an issue here, there's one there, there's one there. Or you can get a particular issue, again, with a feature or anything really.
There we go, turn my mic back on.
Come up against one issue and then extrapolate that out, and QA will just go down the rabbit hole essentially and go,
You're pretty much
this
telling us what we
work,
already
how
know.
about if I do it like this, and what happens if I do this, and what happens there and there and there. And you can end up from that one just initial find, you can end up with another 6 or 7 bugs.
We noticed that there are these occasional black flashes, as you can see one there, in Grand Barter. So like as we were going around, we kind of we noticed that just as you approach these lights, they get more and more extreme. So what we're seeing here is actually it's usually the lens flare that's just spreading a problem out, but what's usually happened is something is divided by 0, or it's taken the square root of a negative number, or just something impossible. And so having done 1 pixel wrong, it then just smears it all over the screen. So you turn it off and there's just a little bit of it still kind of visible. And going right up to it, I think the depth of field starts picking it up.
What the heck?
But you can just see there are these tiny little stipple effects. So we know that the fog uses this sort of like jittered, like per pixel jittering. So this kind of matches the pattern. So like I think if you turn off fog, it goes away. So it's probably fog. And what we realized is this is basically, when it's doing the rectangular lights, what it has to do is it has to at one point it takes the position that it's sampling and it finds the nearest point on the light near to it, and then it tries to get the direction to that, so it sort of subtracts the two distances and divides by that distance. So if you've actually managed to sample it dead on the middle of, like, somewhere on the plane of the light, it ends up with a 0, it divides by 0, it just screws everything. So actually we just put in a very small fix.
If 0, make it 0.0001.
Yeah. So literally just checking to see if it's 0. If it is 0, we just use a completely different vector it's not exactly the right vector that it should use, but it's not visibly different, so yeah, ta-da, it works.
These last few weeks, we've been working on some shopkeepers, and the admin office worker is sort of like a general purpose location or NPC we have whenever you need to deliver or pick up something from a location that has lots of kind of sub, like a station or a truck stop or something. This will be like a general point where it'll go there before it gets, you know, delivered out to where it's supposed to be in the station. And as you can see, we have one of our NPCs here who I just got some new animations from Dave over there, which should hopefully fix this stretching to talk issue.
Oh, nice.
Which has been cursing us from being able to test it properly or use it properly.
For 3.0, we're reworking the turrets for all the ships. And not only the ships, but also, you might have seen it in the rover as well. So with the turrets, we've added the ability to, for the designers to define dead zones and active zones to control how fast the turret turns back and forth. And then recently we've added a feature to have you get into a seat and have the turret rotate while it's getting ready for you to shoot at enemies or other pilots. Turrets are basically like a mini vehicle where they have seats in them and other seat components. And so our existing code can't tell the difference between a turret seat and a ship seat. And so it just chooses whatever it finds first. So we have to define, no, for this turret, we want you to use the turret seat. Or for the ship, we just want you to use the turret.
We got this Jira ticket for a bug that you were randomly dying within visiting our outposts on one of our moons.
Oh wow, he's got the Microsoft keyboard.
Them, so we had to open up the editor, as you can see here, and
something about that keyboard
find out
is,
what the issue was.
You know how most keyboards got to tilt up like
here,
this? Well, that one's got to tilt down like this, so when you're typing, you're actually typing like this. It's pretty cool.
For this example, but this is the atmosphere that, or well, this is the box that contains our room system, which contains atmosphere and actually air, so you can breathe within our locations. But as you can see, there's a gap between two of them, or between all of them. Well, it should look like this.
Okay.
Because when they're not touching, that means the air actually just goes nowhere, which makes it like disappear.
that's a base. Okay, that's not. I thought those were cargo crates.
So you would randomly die at different times because you wouldn't know when the air actually runs out.
Right.
And that was the bug report we got. So we just found out that okay, they're not connected. We need to fix this issue. Our first solution was actually just to make all the rooms bigger. To make sure they touched each other, as you can see in this example here. But we soon realized, straight away realized that also means you can breathe outside. You can technically stand on this window, even though it's outside, you can still breathe and survive without a helmet, which also shouldn't happen because you're on one of the moons that doesn't have air you can breathe.
Right.
So what we had to do was use the custom shape tool that Lumberyard provides, and actually make these shapes fit so they go out an extra bit where the door comes, so the rooms still touch each other, but they don't reach outside, so you can actually not stand on the outside, also being able to breathe.
At the time of filming this, we've reduced our total must-fix issues by 18, which brings us to 76 issues stopping this first release. At the same time, we've checked in a total of 773 new updates to the 3.0 branch. And now this week, we've also made some more important decisions on what we'd like our first round of non-CIG testers to help us evaluate, as well as provide feedback on and keep polishing and fixing.
The evil cottage.
We're really going through this release with a fine-tooth comb, making sure all of the new tech and features work harmoniously together. So while we're all passionately working to knock out the mountain of blockers, as Matt said, Uncovering one thread may unravel and reveal a whole myriad of issues that we always hope will knock out more than one big issue at a time. But putting my personal dreams aside, as we're completing and polishing features, those numbers are going to change, and sometimes dramatically, sometimes higher, sometimes lower. So come back next week to see how we're doing here on Burndown.
All right.
For a more detailed look at what bugs we've been smashing, be sure to check out our 3.0 production schedule report, which we update every week on our website.
Now it's time to talk stamina. The dev team has worked hard to build a robust stamina system that takes numerous factors into consideration to provide a more realistic experience.
For example, if you sprint into combat, you'll discover that your aim will suffer due to the deep breaths being drawn by the character.
Or worse, that you don't have the stamina needed to escape. If the situation goes south, creating a system that requires players to think strategically about their movements was one of the many goals the team had to tackle.
To see what else had to be considered when designing the system, let's take a look at this week's feature.
Yes, let's.
The actor status system started life as a much smaller piece, which we're trying to figure out how to breathe in space, how to breathe, also how to suffocate in space, how that works. The initial implementation was a pretty dodgy thing we did so we can get to zero out the door. We're putting some kill triggers outside the airlocks just to make sure people don't walk outside in their t-shirts. Obviously, people managed to do that because of our wall collisions not being 100% there, and people ended up floating in space in their t-shirts. Not such a good thing. So eventually we started working heavily on the system, but there were a lot of other things that had to come online before this system could actually be fully functional. The main thing that had to come online was our room system. Our room system defines the space of every room, what the atmospheric composition is in each of these rooms, and how air travels from one room to the other. The other problem we had to deal with was how do doors opening and closing react to this. Our doors initially did not support this feature, so we had to redo all our doors, all our airlocks, elevators, so that when a door opens, it actually allows gases to travel from one room and another.
The stamina component defines a default stamina cost, a default stamina regeneration, as well as the requirements to maintain optimal stamina regeneration. On every breath, the stamina component queries the room system for the atmosphere composition and volume of the current room. Then replaces a fraction of the oxygen in the room with carbon dioxide and updates the stamina regeneration based on the amount of oxygen replaced.
Really?
If there's no oxygen in the current room, there's no regeneration, and the player has a limited amount of time before suffocating. The stamina component in, we were able to implement a life support system for the player to survive in space by turning the player's helmet itself into a room. So the player automatically enters this room when equipping the helmet, and the stamina system can maintain optimal regeneration because the room queries will always find the helmet. We also added a gas purifier that removes noxious gases from the helmet, including carbon dioxide, and a gas tank that maintains the pressure in the helmet by feeding it oxygen.
When it comes to having no helmet on or simply having a helmet that does not have a breathing system, you will not be connected to your suit. You will breathe whatever is available in the room, and that will have some consequences, especially when you get into places that either have low pressure or not enough oxygen in the atmospheric composition in the room, or simply noxious or poisonous gases in the room. So that will create an interesting gameplay, and we're trying to make sure the player doesn't always keep his helmet on. It should become fairly costly to keep a helmet on, as this brings a lot of interesting gameplay possibilities to Star Citizen, where you have to rush to a suit locker, get your suit quickly on because your ship is getting depressurized, and there's no other way. You either get to that suit or you die.
Now, the main stamina consumer is the player's movement. While the player is moving, their stamina drains depending on stance, equipment weight, and movement slope. So walking up the stairs is more expensive than walking down the stairs.
So basically every action the player does consumes stamina. If you're sprinting, jumping, crouching, vaulting over obstacles, that will consume stamina. Even idling consumes stamina, just on a very low scale compared to the other actions. We want to encourage the player to think tactically when they perform actions. We don't want them to just constantly run, bunny hop everywhere, where we're trying to achieve a level of realism here. Basically, people who will constantly abuse their actions and not think about what they're doing will get punished, while people who are mindful of every little thing they do will get an advantage.
Nice.
Consider
the way it
yourself
should be.
sprinting into combat for, I don't know, 30 seconds, and when you get into combat, you're so out of breath that you're just cannon fodder for everyone else. Your aiming will be really bad, your recall will be unmanageable.
What is this guy wearing?
You won't even be able to get out of trouble because you don't have enough stamina to sprint away from the mess you got yourself into. So this way, people who arrive fresh in combat will be way more effective than people who just rush there and not achieve much. Walking instead of sprinting will still consume some stamina, but your regeneration, if nothing's wrong with your character, like chest wound or something like this, they will still regen more than you consume when you walk. But you also have the option of completely stopping. And when you completely stop, then you get the maximum regen because your character is not doing anything. He's still consuming stamina because he's idling, because we want to start consuming oxygen out of your oxygen tank. Basically, if you just idle in 2 hours in space, you might run out of oxygen. But if you sprint for 10 minutes, you might run out of oxygen. It's the same because you start consuming way more.
The player abilities are the secondary consumers of stamina. An ability consists of a type, a stamina requirement, a stamina cost, and 2 checkpoints in the game code saying, okay, this is where this ability starts and this is where it ends. You can only access this part of the code if your stamina is higher than the requirement for it. The cost can also be processed in different ways. There's instant cost, like for jumping or vaulting. There's lasting cost, like for sprinting and holding breath. And there's also conditional cost, which is instant cost that depends on what other abilities are running at the time. And all that was good until we added equipment weight into the mix. Jumping with heavy armor and a railgun on your back on Jupiter is a lot more expensive than jumping with a light armor on the moon. So this meant all abilities suddenly had variable costs. So the designers couldn't reliably adjust the ability cost to ensure the player experience. We fixed that by taking the remaining stamina into account instead of current stamina. So instead of saying you need 20% stamina to be able to jump, we are saying jumping is not allowed to drain your stamina below 10%. To show the player status, we are using different combinations of post effects. The problem is when several status conditions are using the same post effect, like for example, when bleeding at low health and low stamina, and all these conditions modify the brightness. So we needed each effect to be noticeable enough on its own, but also not go crazy when stacking with each other. So we implemented a centralized component that runs with customizable rules. With a new implementation, you can say, for example, all contrast modifiers after the first one have their strength reduced by 50%, and together they can never exceed a certain value. The buff system has been in the game for a while, but we never really had a reason to use it extensively. Buffs are pieces of data that consist of a type, a value, and sometimes a time limit. Their purpose is to allow virtually anything in the game to modify the player status using a simple interface. The actor buff component receives all the buff requests and automatically stacks the buffs of the same type together and broadcasts the new value over the network. Bleeding is implemented as a debuff in game right now. When a body part takes damage, it applies a stack of bleeding with a value of 1. That means the player will take 1 damage per second from bleeding. Taking damage to another body part applies an additional stack of bleeding, so the player will now bleed for 2 health every second. Healing one of these body parts will remove the corresponding buff. The buff component, together with the stamina, health, breathing, abilities, and G-force components, make up what we call the actor status system. We use it to change the gameplay experience depending on what happens to the player. So, for example, in the new version 3.0, taking damage to the arm will affect the player's combat abilities like recoil and weapon sway. Damaging the legs will affect navigation, reduce the movement speed, and increase the stamina cost for jumping and sprinting. Damaging the torso will decrease your stamina pool and regeneration. Running out of stamina or pulling too many Gs will make the player pass out, and so on.
One of the important things for us was that the player understands what is happening to them. Just having stamina there is not enough. The player constantly needs to be aware by looking at his screen what condition the character is in. We had to employ a lot of smaller tricks in getting the player to figure out, oh, I'm running out of breath, I should stop a bit, catch my breath, or oh, my oxygen tank is out. So we had to go add a lot of visual effects on the screen when you're running out of breath. We had to add a lot of audio, breathing. We had a lot of animation additives happening to the player. We had to affect the player's aiming, moving up and down with every breath. It's also a lot of UI work that had to go into this to tell the player what's going on at every step of the way. On your visor, you get information about what's in your suit. What's your condition, how much stamina do you have, what's in your suit, what's in your tank, what's in your suit, what your stamina is. But if you want information about the outside, then it's the mobiGlas right now. That gives you all the information about the room that you are in.
My role based on the active status system was to outline the sound design elements of it, speaking with design and code and animation, and basically coming up with a sound design system that would be able to play breathing sound effects in relation to what the active status system was doing. I worked closely with Ewan Brown, who's one of our audio programmers, and together we kind of started to build this system, be able to give audio feedback to what the active status system is doing, so the player kind of hears what the player character is doing. The audio component drives the animation of the character for the breathing. That is going to sync, so the audio will sync with the actual animation of the character breathing, and also on the mobiGlas you've got the heart rate monitor, and we will be syncing with that as well. So heart rate, breathing rate will all be in sync. It's all driven from the same system. The first step for me was doing a bit of research to find out what breathing styles we're going to need and their relative speeds and characteristics. So I thought the best thing to do was to record myself rather than getting some talent in, because I didn't know if it was going to work. And what I did first of all is set up a tempo map. I decided to go along and just record myself at different beats per minute, BPM. So we started at 20 beats a minute, and then every couple of bars I increased the speed by 5 BPM. So it ranged from 20 BPM up to 190 BPM. So in that actual time, we went from a 3-second inhale and 3-second exhale up to a 0.3 of a second inhale and 0.3 of a second exhale, which is really, really fast. So yeah, a lot of fun recording that. The benefit of recording to the tempo map is you got a lot of variation and you got a lot of assets dead very, very quick. However, the downside was I didn't realize how breathing rapidly without needing to, how much that could mess you up. I did nearly pass out a couple of times at the upper end of a BPM scale. Fortunately, it didn't. Once I got enough material, what I did is I edited it all together. So I split all the inhales and all the exhales for the specific BPM and then bounced them all out of Reaper. So I had individual inhale assets and exhale assets. The active status system sonically consists of 3 main elements. So you've got the breathing styles, which are the different types of breathing. Then we've got the grunts and vocalizations. And then we've also got the SFX support. So that's like sound effects relating to your suit, like alarms and like UI elements and stuff like that. Currently we have 13 breathing styles. That will most likely increase. That's currently split across 2 suites. So we've got a breathing suite for FPS, so we're just running around. We also have a breathing suite for piloting, because in those 2 different situations you will be using different styles of breathing. So in FPS, you'll be having normal breathing, recovery breathing, when you're fatigued, taking damage and injury. But then when you're piloting, we use specific breathing styles for that situation. One of them is called AGSM, which is anti-G-force straining maneuver, also known as the HIC technique. And it's a technique pilots use to stop passing out over high Gs. It kind of like they force their blood pressure to remain high in like their head and stuff like that. So when you're pulling really high Gs, you'll start hearing them going, HIC! I watched loads of reference material on the kind of the stresses and strains these pilots put themselves through is insane. So the game actually calls discrete inhale and exhale triggers, which is great. The level of fidelity that we've got is brilliant. So the active status system and the audio component in tandem pass particular values in relation to stamina, O2, health, even like composition of the oxygen and the atmosphere in the room. That feeds into our audio component, which I have control through via DataForge. There's a DataForge record that I can control the breathing suites, the breathing styles, and all the conditional transitions. And through that, I can dictate which breathing style is played at a certain time and how that breathing style correlates to the values that are being passed from the active status system. So the actual audio exists in WISE, which is our audio middleware tool. With this is what currently 13 different styles of breathing. They all live in their own discrete actor mixer hierarchy. Within that actor mixer, there's a blend container which contains inhales, and there's a blend container that includes exhales. So they'd be triggered independently, one after the other. Within that, they each have a range of random containers ranging from the 20 BPM all the way up to 190 BPM. And then the blend containers actually respond to an RTPC, which is a real-time parameter control, which takes the values from the active status system and the audio component, and that selects which of the BPM breaths it should play. Then the game calls the play trigger, which is like play, breath, inhale, or play, breath, recovery, exhale. It triggers it from WISE, and that's what you hear in the game. The animation for the breathing is driven off the data forge record, and you control the curves of the breathing, which can influence the curves of the animation. For audio, it represented a unique challenge for us because normally we're at the end of the stream, but downstream process, normally everything gets done, we put audio to it. This is the first time that I've ever worked on a system where audio drives another feature. So audio is actually driving animation, so we have to make sure we sync with animation very closely because normally our footprint is post. It's never normally, it directly impacts the input of another department. You have to sync, right? You can't have a breathing going in and out and the animation going out and in.
I was involved with the breathing animations, the procedural breathing animations, so making the player's arms and chest move up and down as he breathes, and mostly focusing on getting in sync with the audio and getting the feedback there for the player once they're tired or exhausted. So the system itself is fairly complex on the back end. There's a lot of sort of variables involved and lots of different sort of states and levels to it. But from the player's point of view, we try and keep it as simple and easy to read as possible because obviously it's all about player feedback. It's all about them being able to see, oh, I'm tired, oh, I'm exhausted, I need to slow down a bit, I need to stop exerting myself, and sort of communicating that to them sort of simply and easily while also having the complexity of the back end system and having these sort of more advanced systems behind it. It doesn't slow you down, but it will tell you that you're more tired. You won't be, if you're running along, you won't run slower, but you'll run heavier. The audio will get more intense, you'll breathe heavier, your arms will move more. It'll have more of an effect of when you're trying to aim at someone. If you're exhausted, your aim's going to be all over the place. Obviously this is it's fairly subtle at the sort of normal stamina levels. You won't really notice it. That's the whole point of the breathing system. If you're doing things normally, you don't notice you're breathing. It's only when you're properly exhausted, when you've really been exerting yourself, you will know about it. You'll know you're panting, your arms are moving about, your chest is heaving, and you will be exhausted. From the breathing animation point of view, the primary feedback for the breathing is the audio. That's the thing normally in games that you hear yourself breathing, that's how you know you're tired. The main thing was getting the animations to match up with this audio. We can't use just a baked animation because the breath lengths are different. You breathe deeper or shallower, you take long breaths, you take deep breaths, you take short breaths. So we thought about maybe having animations captured and then blending between them and lengthening them or shortening them, and then we had to go procedural. And the way we did it was we've got curve data that comes directly from Maya, directly from the animators tool. We pull that into DataForge via a script that was written by Rob Howes down in Derby, and then that data is then read with the game and it can be played back. We can adjust the speed of it at runtime. So basically as the audio tells us this is going to be the length of your next breath, we go, that's how long the animation has to last. It also ties into the aim pose system. So in Lumberyard, you've got an aim pose over the top of the player, which determines where he's aiming. So that plays on it's about the last layer it plays on the animation. And it points the gun where he's looking. It adjusts him if he's looking straight up, it points the gun straight up. If he's looking down, he looks straight down. And obviously it's adjusted for different weapons. You get different pivot points and such. Using the procedural animation, we can put it over the top of the aim pose. So if you're looking up, you'll breathe correctly, it'll be the right direction. And it all works smoothly and it works non-obtrusively.
As we started only with a breathing system, we thought our job is mostly done, but eventually we were asked whether we can add the GeForce system to go through the same process, because it's basically just forces acting on the player and causing various good or bad conditions on the player.
So the current G-force simulation, the one in the live version right now, is very accurate, it's very realistic. It goes as far as simulating how the human body naturally adapts under the effect of G-forces. However, moving forward, we need a more generic simulation that works with any type of entity in any context, not only human players piloting a ship. And we need it simple enough to be able to run on all entities at all times. For example, we need unsecure cargo to fall over when the ship accelerates. Our new solution monitors the accumulated velocity of the entity and all the physics grids they are inside of. So we take the linear and angular velocity of the entity, transform them into the parent space, and add the parent's velocities and transform them into the parent space, and so on until there's no parent. Then we can track any change in the accumulated velocity. Any change in velocity means acceleration, and acceleration means G-force.
This kind of became the birth of the actor status system, which is a larger unifying system, kind of brings together every little thing that can happen to
I can see
the
a lot
actor,
of bugs
to the
appearing
player, or
from
to
that.
other characters. So we wanted that all the effects that appear on the screen, all the things that happen to him go through the same filter, as we don't want them to conflict with each other. If we would have made separate system for every little thing that can happen to the player, let's say he's hungry, or he's thirsty, or he's affected by G-forces, or he's out of breath, each of those would have conflicted with the other, and that would have been a nightmare for all of us. So that's why we had to unify, and this became the actor status system.
It seemed to take off, and every single idea from how the player reacts to G-force and exhaustion and being able to do abilities like jumping and jumping over ledges are all affected by this. So we've got how the grunts and the other sounds in his dialogue all need to interact with the breathing, so it's become rather complicated.
Somebody's playing with editing.
I've set up a system in the code to link quite a few different systems. The lungs of the players and how he animates and how that affects the wobble of the gun need to be driven by the breathing, and that needs to be in sync with the audio that we've provided. The challenges we had were, we'd start off with something simple and it would work fine for one scenario. So we'd basically just try sprinting, and when you stop sprinting, it quickly became apparent that it didn't sound very realistic. So he would just quickly start breathing at a normal speed, and we would expect him to sound exhausted for a lot longer. So to fine-tune all of that, to how long it takes to recover and how he sounds when he's recovering, led on to new styles of breathing. So that one was the recovery style of breathing. So when you sound exhausted, you take deeper, longer breaths until you've recovered. I set up a system using our usual user interface for the dev team, DataForge, and we started off with just basically it looks like a table of numbers and parameters for the different ranges of breathing speeds and lung volumes that would need to be taken in to give the player the amount of oxygen back into his system.
Is he editing out a bunch of ums?
Stamina, which is the ultimate goal of the breathing. Given the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere or the room, we calculate how much stamina he can regenerate. So for each breathing style, we tend to have a Bezier curve to make it possible to fine-tune the amount of stamina that he's got or needs, translates into how fast he needs to breathe or how deep he needs to breathe. Quickly from there, we realized we had so many different styles of breathing, like when you're injured or recovering from exhaustion or piloting a ship and experiencing high G-force. The transitions between these became so complicated to manage, we couldn't just do a straight interpolation in between each one. I set up a new thing which we termed a breathing suite. So that was a flow graph set up to join them all together with different transition nodes.
Exactly.
The transition node itself would have a flexible number of conditions that would make it follow the different parts of the flow graph to a different style. So we've expanded that with so many parameters like checking the health or the stamina or the G-force or whether you're blacking out. And we can get it to react in so many ways that make it sound realistic that I think we've got more than 14 different styles, and it really gives the player a feeling that something realistic's happening.
So the actor status system in general tracks a whole lot of variables, things like exertion,
I'm a big
stamina, of course, and that all ties into the room system, which has oxygen, but a room may not have just oxygen, it has other things, might not have a full pressurized atmosphere. So it's important for the UI to sort of communicate state of your surroundings.
One camera's not filming color as good as the other one.
Kind of oxygen is present in your current atmosphere, basically. So if you go into an airlock and you know, you depressurize,
I do like
then
the new
your oxygen tank won't refill anymore. Or if you're on a planet with low oxygen or there's a low atmospheric pressure, then you know that your oxygen tank probably wouldn't refill as quickly as it would in a regular atmosphere. One of the big things that we track in the UI is basically an ECG graph, which is an indication of your stamina. So if you run up a flight of stairs or you sprint for a long time, then you obviously see your heart rate going up, your ECG graph getting a bit more intense. So then that kind of lets you know that you're exerting a lot of energy and
they're bringing attention to it is what they're doing, and that's not good.
So it's cool because it's not like an exact value that you're seeing. It's a bit more indirect, which is kind of cool, and then it's a nice visual in terms of the UI as well. This display on your Mobiglass, and we're also going to be displaying it on the visor as well. So, I mean, obviously, in kind of a very important piece of information that you pretty much want to have most of the time and be available to you at all times. So we have it in the HUD, but there's additional information in the Mobiglass that we have. Obviously, another good thing to know about actor status is what is the state of your surroundings. So, in your immediate atmosphere, because you can go in and out of rooms. Different planets might have different atmospheres, different atmospheric pressures, different atmospheric compositions. And that all affects how quickly your gas tank would refill. Let's say if you're running low on oxygen or something and you want to refill it, or whether or not it's safe to take off your helmet or not. You can pull up your Mobiglass to see, kind of like in that movie, The Martian, where it's checking his status.
For planning ahead, this will be only dependent on the tools the players have. We want to give them the most basic tool, which is the Mobiglass, to just check what is available in their room right now, but they might have access to some better equipment, which gives them, they can scan 2-3 rooms ahead or look at the door and go, what's on the other side? That will help them choose whether they open a door, whether they don't. Also on the doors, the refactoring of the doors, we have indicators now that what the conditions are on the other side. You will always get a warning. There will be a red light if something's wrong on the other side. You will not be able to, you will be able to, but it's your problem if you just want to open a door to outer space. But the game kind of gives you the information. It's up to you to whether you use it or not, and you will suffer the consequences if you don't. Work on the actor status system will not stop here. This will be a long, ongoing process of adding multiple things to the conditions that can affect the player. We're talking here from small little things of basically getting poisoned from whatever's in the room to getting drunk, needing to go to the toilet, all of the little things that can affect the player temporarily. And then we can expand this to go even to stuff like long-term diseases and all kind of depressurization sickness, radiation sickness, and all these things that won't be something that the player can get rid of instantly. They will have to go find a medical specialist in the game that can treat those things, and that treatment might take a while. We'll have to see how we implement that, but the possibilities are pretty large here. An ultimate goal for the actor status system is to have it support multiple races as they get introduced into Star Citizen, and players will have to be aware that certain races breathe a different atmospheric composition. When they enter their ships and their territory, they need to be aware they cannot just remove their helmets. And if they have to deal with these races, as in transport them across the universe, they have to cater for those races' needs. They can't just shove them in a place full of oxygen. They might not like that. They might simply suffocate, or they might have adverse conditions to certain chemical elements that humans just love. It needs to feel real. You need to be aware of every little thing that's happening in the world. You need to be aware of this room might be completely depressurized. That's why we give the player tools. They have the Mobiglass app that they can use to check, oh, this has 0.1 poisonous gas, this does not have enough pressure, this oxygen is too much here, rather than just too little, and you might have a hyperoxia problem if you breathe that for a lot of time. So it's just, players need to be aware. We give them the tools to be aware of the environment, but they need to check and make the tactical decisions and the good choices that allows them to survive or not.
As you saw, stamina is but one component in the actor status system. Combining stamina with these other factors, like health and G-forces, makes your avatar feel more like a real person, not just a game character.
Yeah, this new system also creates a lot of interesting new gameplay scenarios. Players must consider how the armor they're wearing or a room's atmosphere condition might affect their stamina. Decisions like that will help make the game feel more immersive.
Well, that's all for today's episode. Thanks to our subscribers, it's because of you that we can produce all our shows and provide constant support for the community. September's subscriber flare will be released on Friday, so be sure to keep an eye out for it.
Very cool. And finally, a big thanks to all of our backers for their support.
Until next week, we'll see you around the verse.
Yes. Okay, guys.
Yes.
Must have been hearing another voice somewhere. Okay, so I am going to log out of this. Excuse me, sorry. Serious sneezage. Yeah, that's the word. That's the word I'm looking for. Back on? Back on. Alright, let's get this logged in. Oh, I bet you. Yep, that's the wrong password. Doing it. Let's move over to a ready room. There, I moved over to a ready room. So if anybody wanted to join me, they're more than welcome to. Okay, let's go ahead and get the launch game on. You should be seeing it coming up pretty soon. Or not. Yeah, there it is. Alright, guys. We watched the Around the Verse, and now which was pretty cool. I like the stamina system. I think did a lot of thought process in it, and I'm glad they unified it into a central system that controlled all character status. So like bleeding, like breathing, like G-forces, like gravity, broken legs, all that stuff. I'm glad that was all part of the same system. Whoa, what am I doing over here? I'm breaking things. Alright, so we are in Like a Flynn. I'm gonna go back to the universe. I was there this afternoon, and I offered up my services as a game expert. Basically, in chat, I said if anybody needed help with their game, like if you didn't understand the game, just ask. And I had a lot of people ask me questions, and it really made me feel good that I could help the community that way. So I'm gonna do it again. It's one way to pass the time, because I've played every single mission like 20 times, if not more. And it's one way to give back to the community. Give back to the community. No, that's not. Yeah. And it seems like all these guys are pretty cool. They weren't none of the guys. Luckily, I didn't get linked up with any of the jerks, because every now and then, you know the way any game or any internet-based game is. You're always gonna have somebody out there that's a troll. But this one guy asked me to come help him. I'll tell you this little story, and you can go back and watch my afternoon stream this afternoon. But I helped this one guy. I offered to help him, and he said, "Hey, can somebody help me come clear out these guys so I can turn on a comm array?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll do it." So I go over to that comm array. He's already there. He's already clearing it out. That's fine. I'll help him with the next one. And so, let's go very quiet. So so I just park my ship in space, not moving anywhere. He gets in his ship. You could see that he was moving his ship around, and he he was doing one of these numbers from like sideways. He would turn his ship, He aimed it exactly right, and then he flew straight into me. I was like, really? Didn't blow me up. You know, didn't really even damage me, which I thought was weird. And then immediately after that, he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, dude." I'm like, right. I'm done with you. I'm not helping you. So I didn't help him. Hello, verse. Anyone need Niwu? That's what I tried. Need help with the game? I was noticing the graphics for some reason was looking a lot better this today than it had in the past. I don't know if it's just...
Selection confirmed. Your ship is currently connected to the launch platform. We advise guests to please use caution upon exiting the armistice zone, as weapons will once again become active.
Dirk. How do I kill? Oh, Tyrannus Rex. Alright, so I should be packing a bunch of heat. There I am. I got all kinds of heat on me. I got guns for days. I only have one grenade, though. What's up with that? Do I want to take any missions? Not really. There is a public enemy. Security guard post. There's a raise. When I have really good FPS, I seem to do good at the ICC probes. So I'm just gonna pass the time by going around doing the ICC probes. Did I call my ship up? Yeah, I guess I did. It was right there. I just don't remember doing it. That use has to be more visible. Luckily in 3.0, everything's going to be highlighted when you press and hold the F button. And then when you press the mouse button, it will actually select the one you're looking at. I guess you can use the mouse wheel to scroll up and down, but... Yeah, I played earlier today and everybody liked, you know. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pass some time playing the ICC missions. I'm sitting here with 20 FPS, which is pretty good for me. Especially while streaming, you know. I think it's kind of bad when someone says 20 FPS is good. But it's not optimized yet. You know that. If you guys in chat, you know, on either Twitch or YouTube, have any questions or want to ask me anything, feel free to type it in there. I will entertain any questions, suggestions, ideas, anything like that. Looks like the public enemy is hanging out. Yep, public enemy is hanging out at the probe. Just being a dick. Yeah. Okay, so we won't go there. I'll pick another mission. I'm not interested in dogfighting anybody, is what I'm trying to say. I went to the wrong place. Turn that off.
Bottom travel complete.
There we go. Turn this ship around. All right. I only went here because I'm doglegging around the planet to get to... What? Am I confused? Colex.
Quantum travel initiated.
While we're flying in, we'll go ahead and take that mission.
Thank you for getting in touch with me. My husband recently died aboard the Gundo Kovalek station, but the company is refusing to pay out his insurance claim because they say he was at fault. It's ridiculous. There is no way that's true. I know my husband. Darnell had his problems, but that is all in the past. I want you to go to the Kovalek station and send me evidence that my husband is innocent. But even if you find out that he isn't, you'll still get paid. I know your time is valuable, and really, I just want to know the truth.
Where is my chat?
I attached the insurance claim to get you started. Good luck. And I hope to hear from you soon, one way or another. This Kovalek shipping hub is currently closed to the public. We apologize for the inconvenience.
Okay, there it is. See this here anymore. Huh.
Warning. You are trespassing on
That's
Kovalek's
why I
private
got it.
property. This station is currently off limits. Please vacate the area. Hey Darnell, it's Racine over at Corporate Ops. Give me a shout back when you clock in. Just wanted to follow up a bit on the distro issue. Talk to you in a bit. Bye. Darnell, Racine again. Still need to sync up about the power distribution problem. Where are you, man? Getting tired of waiting, Darnell. Call me.
Who's that? Delay.
Hey babe, I just got the package you sent. Thanks a million for the Moby mod. It is incredible. Sorry for the noise. The crew surprised me with a shindig.
Right, we did. Hey, Anya!
Holy shit, is that a bottle of Esquire?
Oh, damn right.
How did you afford this?
Let's talk. Hey, Darnell! Hey! Darnell! Get in on this! Oh, come on!
Jeez, Darnell, look, just one. Maybe a sip. There we go.
Bye, Anya! Let's go. Darnell, one more.
Hey, look, I'm gonna get back to it, but let me know how your dissertation's going. Anyway, I love you and I miss you. Thank you again for the present. Bye, babe.
How did he come in this way? He didn't go past me. Maybe he did. I don't think he did. Unless he's got a way in from the other side.
Hey, Race, it's Darnell.
Where the hell have you been? Your shift started 3 hours ago.
I know. Sorry. I did a breakdown of the current power flow for the station, and it's looking like I'll need to run a stress test on the whole system to see where the runoff is.
Okay. Hey, just be careful.
Will do. I'll keep a close eye on it.
Sounds good. You sure you're okay? You sound terrible.
Yeah. It was Scott's birthday last night, so we were all up a little later than we should have been.
All right. Let me know when you're finished running the test.
Will do.
So those were the ones that I would normally hit and then hit the door on the way out. But recently I've noticed one up there. So that's where I'm heading. For that one, and then, whoa, wait. I already got that one up there, right? Okay. And then I decided one day to go back and explore the whole building before I hit the button to upload. I want to make sure I got every piece of evidence, right? Because there were doors up here that have like lights on them that aren't, they have power and they're not red lock like those bottom lights say they are. Like this one. And the door open. You come inside, there's like a shotgun you could grab. There's a pad right here that you can use.
Hey, wanted to let you know that I got the ops guy's passcode last night. Took a whole damn bottle of Esquire to do it.
You know who this sounds like? This sounds like the main female character on Killjoys.
The crates should go through, no problem.
Anila, or whatever it is.
Right?
Dash.
Codes attached.
The main female lead, you know, on Killjoys. It sounds like her voice right there. Which is cool because Killjoys was and is cool, but come Come on, door, open. Open for me. Let me out. There we go, thank you. I'm in. Okay, now in here you can pick up these cigars. That makes you money. Now let's go upload some evidence. Yeah, I think there's a little delay right now. The FPS is doing okay, but the game is not keeping up. Go. Let's upload the evidence. I think I've got every piece of evidence.
I wanted to let you know that I got the information you sent. And if what you found is true, I owe you a very big thank you, and Kovalex owes me and my husband an apology. Thank you again. I'm uploading your payment to your account now. What this guy's about, but I'm just gonna launch straight up.
Aegis combat assist activated. Systems green. Quantum travel initiated.
Tessa to random ship. Come in, random ship. Hi, welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Second-class junior cartographer Tessa Bannister reporting in. I'm the eyes behind all the ICC scan probes in the area. What these little guys see, I see. Which, yes, means I can totally see you.
Cool.
Right now.
Super.
Anyway, there was actually a reason to why I conned.
Really?
I'm sort of not allowed to leave my post.
Okay.
Important jump point scanning and all.
Right.
So I was hoping you might be able to help me with something.
Sure.
If you have a second, could you check out these coordinates? Scans are saying something's there, but can't ID it.
Quantum travel
Gotcha.
initiated.
I'll go check it out. We're just going to zip on in. I'm sitting at 20 FPS, which is pretty amazing, especially when streaming. Sometimes I hit, like this afternoon, I was streaming with 45 FPS. You should check that out. Everything was crystal clear, smooth. The graphics looked well as well. So we got Dirk Fist
you know that the information you found worked. Kovalex exonerated my husband, and the insurance company gave me the full claim. On top of all that, the advocacy was able to arrest the people that Melisowski had been working with. Turns out there was a reward for information leading to the smuggling ring's arrest, and I want you to have it. I cannot express how much I appreciate the hard work you did on my behalf. Made all the difference.
Yeah, pretty much. What's the end of Gladius?
Big mistake. Shields recharge. Missile lock.
When that crosshair starts jerking around like that, that tells me my FPS is dropping. But I'm at 17. That's not too bad.
You messed up now, Scav.
Did I? You hold still.
Throwing down against nine-tails is never a good idea. I'm gonna show you why.
Why? Are you gonna finally launch a missile at me? Gladius is being a pain.
Shields recharging. You're dead.
I should have put a hurting on him. I didn't mean to drop one flare.
Trying to be heroes.
Yeah, there's something I stated earlier. In 3.0 and beyond, when your ship is so important that you can't, like, eject or blow up without it costing you an arm and a leg, you're not going to want, you don't even want to repair one little wing or one little landing gear because it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. So you're not going to want to get into all these little minor scraps that all these guys are getting into. you know, these public enemies, the guys that are griefing or they're being dicks, right? Because somebody's going to shoot back. You know, even if they lose, people are going to fight back. And so you're going to take a ton of damage on your ship just over and over and over, and you're going to have to repair it. So you're going to have to make sure, just as an adventurer or as a griefer or as a pirate or even as a protector, you're going to have to make sure that what you're doing is worth doing. You're not just going to take every mission, and you're going to make sure that it's going to pay enough to handle any of the repairs or the operating expenses. Right now, we're just doing every mission that doesn't matter.
I am glad that I can be part of your story too.
Really?
Share it well. Safe travels.
Tessa here. Appreciate you looking into that scan for me. Between me and you, I had been hoping we might discover a new life form, like a sentient rock or something. But what you found was pretty neat.
If you know what's good for you, you'll stay out of this.
Systems green. Contact. Proximity alert port. Proximity alert aft. Travel initiated.
Here we go.
Thanks for looking into your busy. Really helped. Quick question for you. This sounds serious, right? It's coming from these coordinates. You should help if you can.
Quantum travel initiated.
I will go help. Yep, speed up. Gotta go rescue this woman. Or actually, it's probably a ship ran at AI, an AI ship, because I've been on this ship. This afternoon, I actually got out and got onto this constellation, and no one was on it. No captain's chairs. The bridge was empty. But the ship talked back when I killed the pirate.
Mayday! Mayday! We are under attack! Please help!
I'm on my way. And there he is.
We ain't got any problems with you right now.
You ain't?
But stick around, and it's gonna change.
Good.
Run and you die. Fight and you die.
It's an Aurora. I probably should slow down. Probably overshooting him. Alright, come on, Aurora.
Big mistake.
Is it?
survivor.
Maybe you will. Maybe you won't.
With that ship in trouble, I mean, space is dangerous, but it's good to know that there are people like you out there too.
That's right. Where am I going? Back to the probe. Nope, not there. How about right there?
Quantum travel initiated.
Ooh, he disappeared. Where'd he disappear to? So we can't black out. I'm trying to black out. Okay, sorry.
Hey, you busy?
Yeah, no.
There's a DB blinking like crazy on my screen. Here, I sent you the location. If you take a look, it's a win-win. They get help, and I get to stop hearing the damn thing go beep, beep, beep every freaking second. Oh, and DB stands for distress beacon, by the way.
Not US, like unidentified signal.
Who calls them DB? Feel free to start using it.
Aye. Don't tell me about to run out of fuel. I'm going a freaking long way. I'm at 41% fuel. Yep, my missile bay is open. There's two flashy lights. That's okay. I know only one of them is important. Let's try not running into a rock. Contact. And it's a cutlass. Dang it. Where'd he go? Disappeared. Saw me coming. I wonder what's down in that big pile of wreckage.
Do yourself a favor and turn around.
Well, there's a Gladius. Let's do him in. Oh, you're gonna be like that, huh?
Shields recharging.
Run and you die. Fight and you die.
Shields recharging.
Big mistake.
was.
Tail. Shields recharging. Shields up.
I don't think it was that big of a deal. Oh, I'm bright yellow. I gotta go repair.
Day 73. Very excited to be coming up to Crusader. Ever since the jump point, I've been working out a rough schedule of what to visit. And by my estimation, I can sightsee for 4 hours if I want to keep my schedule for the rest of the system. Oh, that's weird. Just got an alert that says an airlock was triggered. I swear, the new operating system is designed to not work with these older models. So, anyway, still undecided about whether to visit Hurston or not. Place is already kind of...
Kinda scary. Aegis Lattices activated. Systems green. Proximity alert overhead.
I have 41% fuel. Let's see if I can get there. That's only 17. Let's do it.
Quantum travel initiated.
Hello. I'm here. Wake up. Probe.
Thanks for stopping by Cryastro. Hold while our systems connect to your ship.
I mean, not holding.
Our systems indicate that your quantum fuel is running low. Would you like to refill your tank?
That's kind of why I'm here. That and repair.
Landing request approved. AP activated. Landing complete.
Yay.
Starting repairs now.
Yay. Now don't knock me back. You know it will.
Stand by. Restocking ammunition.
Always.
Fill her up.
I'm sitting there on my hind legs. On my tail. Well, fuel's going up. I don't think those things actually open up and they fly out and then they close. I think they just go, they clip through the floor. I don't know, I haven't actually watched somebody get repaired by standing up next to it.
The team at CryAstro thanks you. Hope to see you soon.
Sure, thanks.
Launch complete. Landing gear retracted. Landing gear deployed. Landing gear retracted. Quantum travel initiated.
Yep, I'm just going to ask people if they need help. If they don't, then it's all good, but that's all I'm really on here for, is to... I'm going to log in probably 2 or 3 or 4 times a night. 4 times a night. 4 times a week, and just help people.
Help! I need help, please! Anybody, hurry!
It does not sound good. Sending you the location of the signal. I think you should go try to help. I mean, you don't have to. You can do what you want, or whatever, but after hearing this, are you really not going to?
Don't guilt trip me. You need to pay a little better, that's what you need. Dangerous.
Quantum travel initiated.
Stress beacon, huh? Okay, well, I'm coming in. I know I'm helping, but I'm flying in. There we go. 6:45 seems slow for a fighter, but I noticed that the Constellation was only 490 something, so I would outrun the Constellation. That's good.
Mayday! Mayday! We are under attack! Please help!
If you know what's good for you, you'll stay out of this.
I'm here.
Missile lock.
Run and you die. Fight and you die.
He's flying at 350. He should outrun me.
Shields recharging.
Are there 2 of them? Or that sound effect just happened late? Desync area here. That's another reason why I use missiles, to solve the desync issue. See, the missiles are blowing up, not even near him. That's what's... He flies past me, and then an hour later it goes... Yeah, so I think there's a little desync.
You had your chance to run. You didn't.
Shields recharging.
I did? Wow, 5 FPS. That was good. 4 FPS. See, his jumping, he must have spawned in that Starfarer.
Hold still. Throwing down against nine tails is never a good idea. I'm gonna show you why.
Shields recharging. Shields up.
Yeah, I'm drifting. Why is that?
Shields recharging.
You're dead.
Shields recharging. Shields up.
God, I love it when people try to be heroes.
I'm not trying to be a hero, I'm just trying to avoid all these rocks, dang. I'm gonna slow down.
Shields recharging.
Oh yeah? Let's see how tough you are.
Shields recharging. Shields up. Missile lock.
Big mistake.
These missiles are way out of sync. I want my money back.
You had your chance to run. You didn't.
Shields recharging. Shields recharging.
14 FPS is not good. 17 is better. Okay.
Shields recharging.
See, somebody spawning in that Starfarer at Wolosar should not affect my FPS, but it does. Do 2 missiles.
Missile lock.
Oh, he did flares. Okay, I did that. That helps.
Oh, you messed up now, Scav.
Dang. Look at that bright red.
I thought that was it for me. Thank you. I owe you for this.
Yeah, so one more hit and I could have been a dead man. The ship could have been destroyed. What would have happened in the real world, in the real game? I would have lost one of my lives. You have a limited number, and my ship insurance would have gone up. You know, it would be so. These missions are a little. The dangerous missions, I should say, the ones where people are shooting back, should be worth more. I mean, even if it's...
Get out of here while you still can.
I will. I'm going to get out of here.
Contact. Quantum travel initiated.
Welcome to Cryastro Station. What can we do for you today? Your ship has endured structural damage. Would you like to initiate repairs?
Sure.
Landing request approved. AP activated.
Okay.
Landing complete.
Landing complete. See, look at that. That's repair, restock, quantum field. All of that is more than I earned on that one mission.
Checked our inventory, and we're stocked for all your repairs. Stand by.
Okay.
Stand by. Restocking ammunition. Beginning fueling. Your ship's all ready to fly. Good luck out there, and remember, next time you're running low, we'll take care of you at Cryastro.
Sweet. Whoa, what am I doing? Woo!
Launch complete. Landing gear retracted.
Boy, that was about to be disastrous. I pressed full throttle forward. I was like, oh my gosh, what the hell am I doing? Almost did one of those Chris Roberts moments. This is bullshit. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I don't really have anything that I want to do right now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bail out of Star Citizen. I'm going to go play some XCOM 2. So if you guys want to stick around and watch this channel and stuff like that, I think I'm going to bring the XCOM 2 live onto... I don't know. No, I'm not. I've got a podcast that I want to watch. I don't know if you guys watch it, but I watch it. I watch it religiously. It's called Critical Role. It's a Dungeons and Dragons podcast. It's done with a bunch of voice actors, and they do a really good job. I followed them ever since episode 1, and I've learned a lot about how to run and how to got some good adventuring ideas from the show as well, and some character ideas, character concepts for my D&D game. So I'm going to bail out on you guys. I'm going to go jump over and watch that live stream. Okay, it's not live. It's actually been recorded. They recorded earlier on Thursday afternoon, but then they upload it, and then you can watch it later. And that's what I'm going to go do. All right, guys. So thanks for coming out and checking out this stream, and I will catch you next time.